Well, tomorrow is a big day for me. Been waiting for it for many years now. Mostly many years of paperwork has been waiting for me to get to this point. But tomorrow is a big day. It's going to be, the church is getting decorated right now. People are gathering together food, and it's going to be a feast. We have some of those these days around here, don't we? The special days of ordinations and of weddings, Christmas and Thanksgiving, feasts that we get ready for. And as we get ready for these things, we can get very tired. We get very tired as we put all the work, we put all the extra work that we wouldn't normally put into it. And God knows that we need to take a rest. God knows that we can only do so much before we're not productive. We can only do so much before we can't enjoy that feast. And so one of the things God did was provide for us a Sabbath rest, because he knew that we needed rest. And so Jesus was heading up to a feast in John. We don't know which feast. We don't know whether it was Passover. We don't know if it was the Feast of Booths. We have no idea what the feast was. We just know that he went by himself, which wasn't very common for him to go by himself. He usually had his entourage with him, but he went by himself. He was trying to be inconspicuous and just enjoy the feast for what it was. Just to be able to be amongst the people and for them to maybe not know who he was. And on a Sabbath day, he was at the feast. The Sabbath, like I said, is provided for a rest that we very much need. And while he is there on the Sabbath, there in Jerusalem, near the sheep gate, there's a pool which in Aramaic is called Bethesda, and which is surrounded by 5 covered colonnades. Here a great number of disabled people used to lie, the blind, the lame, the paralyzed. And one who was there had been an invalid for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and learned that he had been in this condition for a long time, he asked him, "Do you want to get well?" Now for this man, for where he was lying, for the original readers, people who first read this passage, they knew what Bethesda was. They knew exactly what it was. And so when they would have gone to this line, they would be like, of course this guy wanted to be healed. That's why he was there. If you look in your footnote, there's a verse that was added possibly by somebody, a scribe later on down the road, who realized that some people didn't know what Bethesda was anymore. So, verse 4, actually into verse 3, when you get to the word paralyzed, and they waited for the moving of the waters. From time to time, an angel of the Lord would come down and stir up the waters. The first one into the pool after such a disturbance would be cured of whatever disease he had. So, Bethesda was a place where people would lay around waiting for the waters to be stirred so that they could be healed. They all gathered together and they would rush to be the first one in. They would rush to be the one who would be healed. So when Jesus asked him the question, do you want to be healed? His answer may nowadays been, duh, yes, of course I do. Sir, the invalid replied, though, I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred. While I am trying to get in, someone else goes down ahead of me. Someone else beats me to it. Someone else beats me to being healed. Jesus had gone to a place, this Bethesda, a place where he knew that there would be people who had a great desire to be healed, who wanted to be healed. A place where they wouldn't have been happy being paralyzed, being happy being blind, but they were there because they wanted to get well. It'd be like us visiting a hospital and saying, do you want to get well? Of course I do, that's why I'm at a hospital. So Jesus tells him, after he says, I want to, Jesus said to him, get up, pick up your mat, and walk. Get up, pick up your mat, and walk. At once the man was cured. And so, of course, he picked up his mat and walked. He did what he was told because he wanted to be healed. He did what he was told because he wanted to be healed. He trusted that he would be healed. And not only that, he was healed. So he was like, why would I stay here if I'm well? This isn't for somebody who's well. You don't go to Bethesda when you're not sick, when you're not hurt, when you're not lame. So he got up and he left. He picked up his mat and he walked. But it was a Sabbath day. A day that you're supposed to rest. And there are many, many rules that are in place. And some rules that were added on in order to try as much as possible to observe the Sabbath rest as you could. One of those laws you read in Acts chapter 1, the Sabbath day walk, 3/4 of a mile. They actually talked about that in the opening of the Olympics because they showed one of the dignitaries from Israel. He said that since this is going to go past midnight, he had to get a hotel next to the stadium because he couldn't go more than 3/4 of a mile. But really, it's sundown, not midnight. But he couldn't go the 3/4 of a mile. He had to go someplace that was close by. He was observing his Sabbath. And so one of the things they would have called carrying his mat as too much work. It had been too much. You're breaking the Sabbath by picking up his mat. But he did it because he was told to pick it up. He was told to pick up your mat and walk. He was going to be healed. Of course he was going to do it. So they asked him, who was this fellow who told you to pick it up and walk? The man who was healed had no idea who it was, for Jesus had slipped away into the crowd that was there. He had no idea how he was healed. He had no idea who did it to him. All he knew is that he was healed. And that he broke the Sabbath because he was healed. He was in a hurry to get home. When Jesus heals us, and when Jesus comes into our lives after living in a life where we're lost, Jesus doesn't want us to stay there. Jesus doesn't want us to stay by the pool after we've been healed. Jesus didn't want him to stay by the pool when he's healed. He wouldn't want to stay by the pool after he was healed. He was willing to take a little grief for that. And for those who first believe, they do take some grief from the people around them because they don't understand why they're living life a little differently. Jesus comes up to the man later. He found him at the temple and said to him, "See, you are well again. Stop sinning or something worse may happen to you." The man went away and told the Jews that it was Jesus who had made him well.